Okay, we are having some technical difficulties, so welcome to the show. My name is Aisha. Welcome to If I Do This Right podcast. I'm so excited about our show today. So also for some reason, like I said, we are having some technical issues, so please forgive me ahead of time for that. This will be our last show, but I'm so excited about the show we're going to have because this guest and I have we've already started the show without y'all. But Miss Hatcher is a passionate and dedicated special needs advocate with over 15 years of experience supporting individuals with disabilities and their families. Throughout her career, Shanette, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Okay, has worked tirelessly to create inclusive environments and provide resources that empower individuals with special needs to thrive. With a background in business and education, Shanette has collaborated with schools, healthcare providers, and community organizations to ensure that every individual, regardless of ability, receives the support they deserve. Shanae believes in the importance of advocacy that is not only about legal and policy reform, but also about fostering empathy and understanding in the community. She works closely with families to navigate complex systems, offering guidance and resources while also providing a voice for those who are often underrepresented. Through her passion to serve those families in need, a special mom brand was created. Her goal is to continue to touch lives and countless individuals and to be a tireless advocate for the rights and well-being of those with special needs. She is also a member of why is it's not coming up for me. She's also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and also has served our country as a Navy vet. So welcome to the show, Miss Hatcher.
Hey,
Hey.
how's it going?
How are
Hello.
you? Again, so sorry for the time. Everything was going just fine. And then I logged off with you, went to go do some other stuff for the show, and the internet started acting crazy. But nevertheless, we are here. How are you
We're here.
doing
We're
today?
here now. That's all that counts.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. I think if I do this right, never airs again. I think that this is a phenomenal opportunity and way to close this out by having the likes of you on our show today. So
Thank you.
excited to
Thank
have you.
you. Yeah.
So one thing that we like to do is I like to have a question of the show, just a random icebreaker type question. So
Okay.
the question for today is, what movie would you want to live in if you could? Like if you could just embed yourself in a movie, what movie would that be?
Oh man, that's a hard question. Not what my favorite movie is. What movie I want to live in.
What movie would you like to live in?
I'm gonna go back to one of my favorite movies because it was such a cool era.
Okay.
During the Harlem Renaissance, and that's Harlem Nights.
I love Oh, excuse me. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What that would be such a fun time and a movie to be in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mine would be Transform any of the Transformer movies.
Okay. So you're like into the sci-fi.
I I really love. You know what? I do like some sci-fi, but
Uh-huh.
I am a Transformer fanatic.
Mm.
So just to be in that space. Now I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I don't want to die, but I just think that that would be a fun experience. I'll lose some weight.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know, Aisha. I might need a do-over. Let me change my mind because now that I thought about it, let me go to Black Panther, the original one, so I can do that.
Nice. Nice. Yes. I like
Go
that.
around doing that every day would be a cool
Every
thing.
day, every day, every day. And the just to be in that type of culture, I think
Exactly.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be.
agreed.
It would be.
Agreed.
It was amazing to see.
Yes.
Um, of course, I did see the sequel. It was different. I'll just say that. You
I
know.
cried.
Yeah, yeah, and I cried when Chadwick Boseman, they announced that he had died. You know, I
Yeah.
think we're so conditioned in culture when people, lose a lot of weight, that we have a
Yeah.
tendency to think that they have some stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think me, along with a lot of other people in the community, was like, "Oh no, not Chadwick."
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he was suffering with cancer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
I think
but yeah, I
I
cried.
think
I cried when I heard that he died, and under the circumstances, because I was like, he received so much flack, but he wanted to keep that private, and I really respect that. You know,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think that any individual has their right to go through whatever they're experiencing in their way.
in their
Uh,
way, in their
yeah.
way, and I
And I
completely
think that
agree, because some people are very private,
yes,
and some people are not, and that's their body and their health, and it's their choice. You know.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that we as a society think sickness looks a certain way.
Yeah.
We think autism looks a certain
Yeah.
way. We think mental health looks a certain way,
Mhm.
and it doesn't. It doesn't
Mhm.
have a face to it. It could
It
be
doesn't. It doesn't.
anything, and I think we just read it as a certain way. Going over some current events, and I couldn't think of any current events other than these tariffs that we are experiencing that have been so. My question for you: do you think that it was a hoax? The
Well,
tariffs, like, do you think? Mhm.
I think initially it had some validity to it, but then once he
Okay,
stopped it, and then the stock market, that whole part, it made me
that's my point.
question, if it was pre-planned all along. But the
Agreed.
the
Agreed.
tariffs on China are still in place, right?
I I think they're on pause, but only if I'm not mistaken, like 60 to 90 days.
Oh,
I
okay.
do know that the deal for TikTok, the last I heard, is off the table altogether.
Really?
Yeah.
So when is TikTok gonna like end now?
We have 60, I think 60 to 90 days.
Oh,
90 days.
okay.
Yeah.
That means that I need to go ahead and get everything out of my cart then before they. That's why I was trying to figure that out. Like, how much time do I have? Because I have like about 120 things in my cart. So.
120. I thought I had a lot with five.
Yeah, I know. It's just
Yeah.
and I probably shouldn't have said that on the broadcast. But anyway, yes.
But
Don't judge
that's
me.
so
Judge wrong.
relatable because
Anyway, yes.
yeah, that's that and Shein. Because
Yes.
I know I have a bunch of shit, and I'm like, oh, if they go up on the shipping, that's
And
going.
I thought about that too. This is an opportunity but I don't know. I'm looking at the videos and everything. I might need to book a trip to China because all the stuff is cheap now. It's like, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then I'm afraid to fly right now.
Yes. Well,
This
the
specific
tickets are so
voyage,
cheap on Southwest now. I just
yeah,
make sure that I say a good prayer. Have
yeah,
some
yeah.
holy
And I
water in
think
my purse and stuff, and just keep on going.
exactly, you bring up a good point because I think that when situations or the world circumstance as it is now, I think it does have a tendency to provoke fear. And it's like, how do we live in this society where we still live our lives, but not live in fear, still live our lives, but also have some wisdom,
Mhm.
so to
Yeah.
speak.
And I
Um,
think it's a balancing act on that because um, I believe that that's what they want us. They want us to be paralyzed and crippled with fear. Like everything is like, oh my God, oh my God. And you
mhm.
every morning when I wake up, my phone has a new,
Breaking
something else
news.
has been done and stuff. And
Yeah,
it used to bother me. And I was like, I'm not even reading this stuff in the morning anymore, until I do my meditation and stuff. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much that I can do about it.
right.
There are some things, we need to be prepared for it. And it's so crazy because I was telling my friend yesterday, as far as I go, I teeter between YOLO, you only live once. And then, oh, I need to become more financially responsible because,
Yeah.
what if we are in a recession, but,
Yeah.
what if it gets worse? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but either way, I don't believe in living in fear. That's what a lot of people did that during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do it then either. I mean, I wore my mask and I was very conscious about being safe. I wanted my family to be safe, but I flew in. I had my mask on and I was like taking advantage of those good flights
Yeah.
and I enjoyed my life. And it was
Yeah.
one of those experiences that I never regretted because I'm like, okay, so if I do die next week, at least I know I had a few good strips under my bed before I did,
That's
because what if this happens? What if it doesn't?
yeah.
So I like to live more like on that mindset with the glass being half full instead of half empty. It,
Agreed.
it works better for me that way.
Agree. Totally agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree. We talked a little. We had a great
We
conversation.
did. We
Um,
should have had a podcast before the
we had
podcast.
a podcast before the podcast, but one of the questions that I asked you that I said I'm gonna come back and ask you this once we
Okay.
start the show because I'm so interested in your response, and then we're gonna talk about the book, of course. But because you served our country, thank you
Mhm.
for your service.
You're
How many
welcome.
years were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy for 4 years.
4 years. Okay, awesome. That also speaks to your intelligence because I always think of the Navy and Air Force as the super intelligent of the
It is.
of
It
the
is.
forces.
It is. Make no mistake. And no offense to those that were like in the
Sure,
Army, in the Marine
sure,
Corps.
sure.
My
But I always see them as brute,
ex-husband
force.
was in the Marines, and he
Okay.
even said it. He said, they want the ones that's going around, the tough guys. A lot of jocks join the
Mm-hmm.
Marine Corps because they're known as the toughest.
Right.
But like he said, how smart do you have to be one of the first people they sent off to war? You look at it one way or you look at it the other. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
But they're
So
all great people, so
absolutely,
I'm not
absolutely.
bashing the Marines or the
No,
Army.
we're not bashing anyone,
No,
and I
no.
know what I
I'm
have.
just saying, that
Yeah, I have my father served in the army. My brother was in the Marines, and it was funny because my dad gave my brother a hard time about for going into Marines, and I
yeah,
never got that
yeah.
as a kid. But. But my question to you is, as someone as a vet,
Hmm.
how do you feel and about um the things that like how can I say this? How do you feel about the commander in chief in regards to some of the divisiveness? What would you say to, okay, here's how I would word this.
Okay.
What would you say to someone who is serving the country right now who may not necessarily agree with our commander in chief at this time?
Um, we take an oath, and the oath basically says that we are there to protect the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, he is uh, their commander in chief,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to respect the position.
Mm-hmm.
That part is no different than having a boss you don't like. You might
Yeah.
not like the person, but
Yeah.
you are supposed to respect the position.
Right. Oh,
And I know it's really hard at this point, especially after a lot of things that he's done, to like cut funding with the VA. A
mhm.
lot of the federal employees are veterans, so that affects them as well.
Yeah.
Um, Also going to Mar-a-Lago to play golf last weekend instead of being there to receive those fallen soldiers. That's the type of stuff that really is very disappointing. You know,
Sure. Yeah.
anyone that has basically put their life on the line for this country, regardless of what your view is or why you might have voted for him if you did,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to excuse that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
that simple because a lot of times people don't realize that if you didn't serve, or if you were not a veteran or active duty, but your life isn't your life.
Yeah.
If they tell you, if I'm active duty and they tell me, they call me or however they communicate now and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, we need you to go to Lithuania tomorrow. You don't tell them, well, no, that ain't gonna work for me, dog. You go.
You go. No
That's
questions
why
asked.
a lot of times I don't even think people realize the gravity of being, a lot of times people don't realize the reason why a lot of people say thank you for your service, because we did serve. And part of that as a female veteran was that because I got pregnant with my first child while I was in there.
Okay.
And they let you know that you have to have something in place as soon as you have that child, where legal guardianship. Of course I was married, so but who else, who's the backup person? Because it can't be anything, well, okay, Shanette, we need you to go to Lithuania, what am I going to do about my kids? Oh no, that's already in place, because when we need you to go, you go.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's really hard to do that, but it's a great opportunity in a lot of areas. You have the GI Bill that allows a lot of people that can't afford to go to college, especially now,
Mm-hmm.
to go. The state of Texas has additional benefits for veterans, so you have all of those benefits in place, so you want to do what's right. But then at the end of the day, you're a parent. So that goes for, male and female, moms and dads. They have to have things in place to lead those children if they are called to go somewhere else and the kids can't come.
Yeah, it is truly a sacrifice
It is.
for the whole family, not just
Mhm.
the person going, but like you said, the whole, when one person decides to serve, really the whole family has made
It
a
is.
decision
It is.
to serve. Um, and so I appreciate your viewpoint on that, because I think a lot of people forget that those people who have signed their life over for however long are obligated to serve whether they agree or don't agree.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's always been that way, but I
Right.
think that now it's such an extreme circumstance that we're under at this time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
have a book coming out
I do.
tomorrow. Let's talk about that.
Actually, we're going to push it back because a
Okay.
lot of things have been going on. I want to have it. I want to have the website is under reconstruction at this point, so
Okay.
I'm going to release it next Saturday, which is on
Okay.
the 19th,
Okay.
and that way the website and everything, where everyone can order and all of that stuff. So yeah,
Okay. So
but yes, I do.
okay. So what's the title?
It's called The New Normal:
Okay.
A Guide to Raising a Special Needs Child. So
Love
yes.
that. Love that. Love that. What tell if whatever you feel comfortable in sharing, what is the special needs that type of, I'm sorry if I'm not saying this politically correct, but what type of special needs is your child?
What is her diagnosis?
What is her diagnosis? Thank
Yeah,
you.
her
Mhm.
diagnosis. She's autistic.
Autistic. Okay.
And so, with autism, first of all, and I wanted to just, kind of backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
When I met up with Aisha months ago, I was like, I don't know if, I was really impressed with her podcast and, her videos and everything. And I was like, hey, April will be here in a few months.
That's right.
Do you have someone that can come on and talk about autism? Because April is Autism Awareness Month.
Autism
And
awareness.
so I just wanted to put that out there.
Mhm.
Um,
Thank you for
as
mentioning.
far as Aaliyah, she is what you would consider low to mid functioning
Okay.
autism. There's different levels as with anything else. So, one of the reasons why I decided to write the book is because, as a parent, there's not a guidebook to parenting to begin with. And
Yeah.
there's definitely not a guidebook to parenting special needs children.
Yeah.
And that goes for whether they're considered intellectually developmentally delayed, which is IDD,
Hmm.
what years back used to be considered mentally retarded. They've
Yeah.
changed some of the wording and everything, or physically challenged. Whatever it is, it takes that child from being what's considered quote unquote normal
Hmm.
to having a challenge or a disability.
Hmm.
And that looks different. And kind of like what you were talking about with veterans, it doesn't just affect that person. it
Mhm.
affects the whole family.
Mhm.
And that was one of the things. It was really hard to write about because um, it was very personal and I'm a very private person,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to my children.
Mhm.
But I felt like it was something that needed to be done because people are dealing with this every day. I see it in the education system, and it's a lot of kids and families that are falling through the cracks. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to, address that.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that there is a bigger support gap? And I'm not trying to make this about race, but do you
Right.
see a bigger support gap when it comes to our minority families who happen to have children on the spectrum versus, you know, the the majority?
Well, I can say, in my opinion, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to go from my own personal experience. And the reason why I say so, just from being a professional educator for years, what I see in the school system a lot of times, um, Caucasian parents, when they see there's an issue, and not all of them, it's not completely 100%,
Right.
but I will say that my experience has been with Caucasian parents when they see that there is a challenge or there's something that needs to be done, they seem more open to, okay, what can we do? What can be
Mm-hmm.
done?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Children of other races and ethnicities like African American, Hispanic, uh, even Asian descent, these are all children that I've taught. It's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
different. And so I even talked about in my book, I talked about in the beginning, raised a Christian and, where, prayer fix everything, I addressed that in the book
Yeah.
because, we're raised in church that, it's nothing that Jesus can't fix.
Right.
And so I had a whole chapter devoted to that about things that me and my husband did on that concept that, okay, the doctors are saying this now, but it's nothing that prayer and fasting won't stop. It's
Sure.
nothing that it won't heal.
Right.
And that's not the case. That's not the case. I'm not saying that it didn't help us on our journey because it
Mm-hmm.
definitely was a journey, especially in the beginning. Uh, and it takes faith. You have to believe that regardless of what it looks like, that there will be better days ahead.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I will say that. But to answer your question, I say that because, and then it's a pride thing, because a lot of times with parents, they think, okay, if it's my child, I had it, I'm the mother, I'm the father, that means there's something wrong with me. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. But
There.
people, a lot of times, people of color sometimes have a tendency to think that, or
Mm-hmm.
there's the shame factor,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't want, them being treated differently.
Yeah.
Well, they're already treated differently because they're not able to function in a regular classroom.
Right.
So, do
Yeah.
you want them treated differently where they're able to grow and receive what they need to be able to learn at a capacity where they can? Or do you want to continue to hinder them because of pride or, just being ashamed of the situation
Yeah. Exactly.
or even fear?
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
think our society now seems a little bit more understanding and patient than it used to be. I
absolutely.
remember I have a good friend of mine who has a son that's autistic.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget, we were in a grocery store. Some kind
Hmm.
of way we ended up meeting up and we were shopping together. And she had her son with her, and he's on the spectrum, and he was acting out at the time.
Hmm.
And we were at the checkout line, and I'll never forget this. This lady, the cashier said, can you do something about him? Can you calm him down?" And my friend was so gracious but stern, and she said, "Ma'am, my son is autistic." and the look on her face, I could have cashed it. But my first thought was, that's what you get. That's
Mhm.
that's what you get. But I also realized too that that was because we see something and we already want to label it, that
Exactly.
child is bad, or
Mhm.
we want to label it as something when it's simply not the case.
Right.
And I hope that was a learning opportunity for her to say, let me not always judge when I see
Right.
a child acting out as that child is quote unquote bad. I don't believe in bad children.
Mhm.
I believe in there's something there's something missing or there's something that's needed, but that
Right.
doesn't mean that that child is bad.
Mhm.
Um, but I will never forget that. But I think that, and when we walked out the store, I was like, friend, I'm so sorry that you had that. And she said, girl, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Um, so um let's talk about some other things. That's I'm excited. So before we move on, the book is coming out in the Tuesday.
I'm releasing it Saturday, so that'll be April 19th.
Okay, on April 19th.
Yeah.
Please make sure that I'm aware of it because we'll still, even though we won't be holding shows any longer, we'll still have space to push that out. And I definitely want to help push that out
Absolutely.
for you all.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about some other things. You have over 15 years in your field. Uh, what has been the most rewarding part for you of your job?
Seeing kids grow,
Mm-hmm.
it's always, it's kind of like they're your kids because you spend a lot of time with them.
Mm-hmm.
So to see them not at their best, to see them understand and make the connections that the content that you're trying to teach them, and more importantly, the life skills as far as this is not all right.
Yeah.
Every household is different, and so I'm not judging parents on what they're doing or not doing, but because it's a lot of people that are working. I
Yeah.
mean, you and I work, but I'm just
Mhm.
saying working a lot. I was in an IEP meeting last week with a student that's having a lot of challenges, and her mom said, well, because and one of the things that we were talking about is that the young lady is absent a lot. She's absent more than she's there.
Okay.
And she said, oh, I really wasn't aware of that because um, I leave for work before she goes to school.
Mhm.
And by the time I get home, she's asleep. So you really not seeing your child.
Yeah.
And I didn't judge because at the end of the day, I don't know if she has, if her dad is in the household or whatever. But the mom is working because she needs to work.
Yeah.
She's working because she needs to take care of her child. I don't know if the young lady was an only child. I can't really say,
Hmm.
but she had some mental health issues going on as well.
Hmm.
And you're like, and I'm like, and she's like, I know this, and if there's is there any way that you all can help? And there is some help that was offered, and they're trying to create a plan for her. But at the end of the day, it's only so much we can do within those school hours.
Hmm.
And if you're gone all of the time, who's supporting her when she's at home?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot of cases like that, where the parents are working a lot, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. Do you
and you
do you
just kind
think?
of, it makes you sad because I think in situations like that, it forces the children to grow up faster than they need to. It's like
Yeah.
they really don't have that childhood and that space to just be a child because they're being, babysitters or they're, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that there is a gap in the resources, or is there a gap in the knowledge of the resources available?
Um, I think that a lot of times I can say that the district I'm in, they get it right as far as letting parents know when they're, in the special needs area, as far as resources that are available. um, I don't know how much is being done with the parents on their end. And I
Sure.
think that's where advocacy comes in place, as far as like that mom, for example. She sounds, I think she said at some point she's working 14 to 16 hours a day.
Wow.
Let's be honest. When would she have time to even fill out the paperwork for that,
Yeah.
or to,
Yeah.
very little time. And
Yeah.
so
And
I
it goes
think it's
back
a
to
lot
what
of
we,
time that's the issue.
yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about just like with being in the service, it takes the whole family. When you
Mhm.
have a special needs child, it's the whole family, and we don't know who her support system, if
Mhm.
any, is.
Mhm.
So, man, but I love the fact, I love your answer to that, to be able to see that growth.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet that's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing, because going back to, that you see kids that are, because I'm really big on empathy,
Hmm.
because kids a lot of times, and I was laughing with one of my coworkers on Friday. Um, these kids were raised in the reality TV era, you know. So when you see Nene and what's the other one's name? Not Portia, but you know the one.
Hold on, because it's been a minute. So you got Nene, you got Portia, you got Candy not on the show anymore.
The one that's always she's been trending lately. I hadn't watched it in ever, but you know the one I'm
I haven't
talking
watched it in years. I haven't watched it since the
about.
first
Dog, I can't.
couple of seasons.
Kenya.
Yes,
Yeah. So when
boy.
you have them just doing like stuff like, girl, what you doing? And the kids are saying this because it's entertainment to them. They think that stuff is normal. So stuff that we were raised not to say out loud, even if we think it, because they're watching people say it out loud and not just think it. They come to school and say it out loud. So the stories that I could tell, that would be another, like, that would be a series of podcasts on the stuff that I hear at school, that you would be like, you would be clutching your invisible pearls, because you're like,
Yeah,
ooh, okay.
yeah. You know
And
what?
so
I think
I'm big on
about
empathy, because baby, some things shouldn't be said, you know.
yeah, yeah. I,
Yeah.
you know what? I never thought about that being something that was infiltrating our school system at the point. I've always thought about how this new generation is very what's the word I want to use? Uh they want instant gratification.
Yes. Yes.
They want instant gratification. I never thought about how reality TV, because
Mhm.
it's most of what's on
Yeah. Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
way, shape, form, or fashion,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how it's affecting our school age children.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I bet you have a lot of stories
I
in
do.
regards to
I
that.
do have a lot of stories,
Wow.
and it's some of them are funny, and some of them are just like you just kind of shaking your head like,
Yeah.
ooh, you know.
Yeah.
And so you have that, and that's the thing. Everything is the whole culture about, oh, I got these Yeezys and all the other shoes and the latest iPhone, and all of that other stuff. I have a what I think it's a 14 Pro Max, but when it came out a few years ago, it's like, oh, Miss Hatcher, you got, oh, okay, I see you, Miss Hatcher. That's the type of stuff impresses them,
Yeah. Yeah.
the latest iPhone. So since it's 2 years old now, it's like,
Now it's not impressive
no, it's
anymore.
not impressive.
But that bill is,
I
that
know,
they
right?
don't
I
understand.
know, I know. So yes, exactly. And
That
so
bill
much
is.
for updating it, because if a new iPhone is 3,500, then I'm just gonna have to rock with
I'm
this
a
14.
listen. I'm gonna keep mine till it just crumbles in my hand at this point, because no.
But that's Apple for you. But at some point, it's gonna start going on the fritz, because they like, wait a minute, she done had this phone for a few years. Let me go and start messing with it.
See, I think that again, because they'll only let you go so long
Mm,
before that phone starts
yeah,
messing up. And I think I remember someone telling me that it becomes a point where the updates no longer work for the older versions.
oh,
They
I
can only
see,
go
I
so
see.
far.
Mm,
I still think it's a scam. It's
Well, I
it's
mean, since we're already talking about taking a trip to China, then I'll just get the latest one when I go
a paper
when I go over
for
there.
$50 for it.
Yeah. So I'll just say, yeah, right. Maybe I probably can get it for a few $100s. I don't know. Who knows?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you have traveled all over the world.
I have traveled, not a lot all over the world, but I have traveled. I have.
Okay. Okay. Give me name your top three.
I am really big on, since I grew up, I was born on the West Coast. So I was born in California.
Okay.
And so, and then, but I was raised in East Texas. So
Shout out East
somewhere
Texas.
that I always wanted to go and I never went until actually a few years ago was the East Coast.
Okay.
And I actually love it there. I love it because it's cool. It's not
Mm-hmm.
hot like it is in Texas.
Yeah.
So top places I would say is DC.
Okay.
I love Washington DC. I do. Philly was interesting because a lot of times with me being a history buff, when I go, I want to see like all of the historical content
Uh-huh.
and not just the stuff that we learn about, but also our history as well.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and when you said DC, I was that the first thing I thought about was like it's there's a lot of history
It
there in
is. It
DC.
is.
I have had an opportunity to visit DC one time
So
in my life.
did you go to Howard and do the Howard tour?
I did not, and I really, I want to.
I know. Because I did. I had to show you the pictures because yes, I was
Yeah,
there.
I definitely want to. I definitely
Took
want
pictures
to.
on the yard and everything. I mean, that's
Yes,
yes.
that I think
Went to the
every
headquarters, took a picture in front of the headquarters. All of it.
yes, I think
Yeah.
every Greek who started at Howard should visit Howard.
It's
Oh,
a must do. I mean, you
it's a
have to
must
do
do.
it.
Agreed. I haven't done it yet, but I do plan on it. I do plan on
And
it.
and
So,
it's so many, and even my oldest daughter lives there now, and she's like, Mom, because they're the powers that be are
sure.
talking about, closing down the museum. So she's like, you need to
Yes.
go ahead and get up here before they close down the Black Smithsonian.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's called the Black Smithsonian, but the African American Museum.
Yeah.
And so,
The history of
and
African something.
I think yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But I know the Smithsonian has but I don't know if they're two separate ones, but yes.
But
But
it's even a
it's a
history
lot of
of
culture there.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. It's so disheartening. It's so
It
disheartening.
is because at the end of the day, I mean, everyone's history is important. But if you know anything about colonization, that's the first step. You get rid of all of the things that were there. You change the language, you change the names, you know.
Mm,
Mhm.
that's the first step.
That's the first step.
Now let me be nosy. Is your daughter a legacy?
Okay, so we talked beforehand. Do you
Yeah,
really have to ask that
I
question?
did.
Indeed, she's a legacy.
Hmm. Hmm.
I raised her right. So yes, she's a legacy. Yes.
No judgment.
And but yes, she is a legacy. And it was a great experience. It was crazy because when she went to UT at
Okay.
Austin for undergrad,
Uh-huh.
and at that point, because I was so into it, like, okay, if you're gonna go to a school, you need to go to a school that has Black Greek life. I'm just gonna be honest, because that was important to me.
Hmm.
You know, culture is everything. You
Hmm.
can't say that you are a cultural person and that you raise your kids to know who they are and not be about that life.
Right. Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I'm not saying it's about just Greek life in general, even though we are,
Hmm.
but even having a strong Black Student Association, which that's
It
a whole
makes a
nother
world
podcast.
of
I
difference.
don't know if they're going to if they have those anymore on campus, but at that point they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like, because UT is a PWI, a public white institution.
Mhm.
They had a Black graduation, and it was lit.
I bet.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I
Um,
mean, it's so I'm like, okay, let them,
yeah.
it's all this stuff that they, so it was really like, even though it wasn't an HBCU and it was only like 5% African Americans there, imagine that. They were very close knit and they did a lot. And it wasn't just black, they had the Asian graduation, Hispanic, they had one for everybody,
That's
so
awesome. That's awesome.
it was
So,
like it was a great culture.
mhm.
And she had some lifelong friends. But going back to the Zeta chapter, at that point they didn't have one, but they had like some people there that worked at the university, and so there were Zetas, because I asked, I wanted to know. And
Yeah.
so anyway, her line was three legacies.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It was.
That's
It
beautiful.
was.
That's
And
beautiful.
I was just like, that's what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
shout out to UT Zeta Phi Beta. They got it right. They got it right.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that a lot of times people don't talk about enough, is that that's important to us. That's our history. That's our culture. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that Greek life is for everyone,
Mhm.
but for those that are a part of it and have those memories and those great experiences, that's a legacy that we want to continue on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's more
And so,
than what I explain to people who aren't Greek. It's more than us wearing
yeah.
the letters. It's more than us doing the stomp shows. It's about community. It's
Mm-hmm.
about, it's about fellowship. It's about sisterhood. And we all know every sorrow is not a sister. But those are the foundational bases. I love what you said, because I graduated from a PWI as well.
Mm-hmm.
The PWI that I graduated from, so I have an interesting story for you. So the PWI that I graduated from, first of all, my mother had me late in life.
Mm-hmm.
She went to Philander Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her, why did she not push me to go to a HBCU? You know what she said to me? She
What?
said it wasn't HBCU when I was going. It was just school when I was going, because that was
Oh,
the option you had. And I was
right.
like, oh, that makes sense. So she said it never dawned on me to encourage you in that route, because
Right.
it was just school for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to a PWI, and it's interesting because I kind of had the same experience as your daughter, because our Black Student Association was very close knit, even to the point where we still get together now.
That's cool.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So I graduated college in '02,
Okay.
and we still get together. We get together every homecoming.
Oh,
Now
that's
for the now we've kind of missed each other, but now we've been making a point to make
mm-hmm.
a thing, so we're very close knit. But there was not a Delta chapter at
Oh,
my
okay.
school. So I
Mm-hmm.
ended up having to do it in an alumni chapter later on in life.
Yeah.
So, interesting story, when we talk about legacy, when I finally told my mom that I
Mm-hmm.
was pledging, she said, "It's funny that we never had this conversation before."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She said, "That's funny that you pledged Delta, because when I was in school, I wanted to be a Delta." I
Mm.
never knew that.
Wow.
Never. And it was even, and of course, we try to not go by stereotypes, but my mom was a very fair, God rest her soul, she was a very fair skinned woman.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I was like, "You want to be a Delta?" And she said, "Yeah, girl, them AKAs was coming at me, but that wasn't for me."
Yeah,
That wasn't for me.
yeah.
But that goes to show, I like what you said about even at PWIs, having a strong Black association, if that's going to be your choice. And I think anybody, you go where you want to go.
Yeah.
But I think that I've worked at HBCU, so I know
Mhm,
the culture there is so strong. So if you're not going to choose an HBCU, choose somewhere that has a strong, or whatever ethnicity you are, choose
Mhm.
something that has a strong support system for your
Yeah.
ethnicity. I think
Yeah.
that's important. I think
Yes.
that's definitely important.
It's
Absolutely.
very important because you have to realize these are young people just now moving out from their home.
Mhm.
This is their first time being independent on their own. They need that support system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
so
really,
I
really,
think that's something that people need to talk more about, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I hope I have the opportunity to experience having a legacy because my daughter is she went to HBCU, left, and then is now back in school.
Okay.
So and then my grandbaby, I told like she's less than 1 years old, but Delta is in her blood, and I'm trying to instill that in her.
That's ironic because I had my first grandchild. She's 3 weeks old now. And so I
Oh,
was just like,
congratulations!
yes. And
So
so
this is your first
she's definitely, I told my son, she's definitely, on the Zeta train.
one. Yeah,
Her
she
mom,
on the way.
I don't know how her mom feels about that, but
Yeah, just
I'm
putting
just
that
putting
out
it out
there.
there that that's the
So
expectation.
she's your first?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
It's you see how happy it makes me. She's an amazing
Yeah.
baby. All
Yes.
babies are amazing, but yes,
Yeah, but we always partial. So
yeah, yeah.
I happen my kids love me so much that my two oldest both had children last year.
Oh wow. So now
Um,
you have two
I
grandkids.
have two grandbabies. I have a my granddaughter is the oldest by
Uh-huh.
she's the oldest by 5 months, I think.
Okay.
Uh, and they what they tell you is different being a
Mhm.
grandmother,
It is.
but you never I don't think I realized the scope of it until I actually had the baby.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I agree. I
yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree.
And to be able to spoil I my kids laugh at me all the time because
Mhm.
they say to me, you're gonna have to discipline her. I say, oh, my discipline days are over. I get to do fun stuff. I leave the disciplinary, I've served my time, and the disciplinary actions are on y'all now. Now I will uphold what you say, but
Mhm.
as far as me carrying them out, I'm not doing it.
Well, you remember, I'm just going to remind you of what you said earlier in the podcast when you said you don't believe that there are any bad kids.
I don't.
I respectfully disagree.
Really?
Yes, yes. Now
Okay.
they might just be it might be where there are no bad kids, they just act bad. But whatever the case is that and it was funny because my mother said that to me. She said because she doesn't believe in discipline. And so she was like the grandkids rather. And so she was like, wait until you have grandkids, you'll see, why I get emotional, when you discipline the kids and stuff. She said, because you're not gonna want to do it. Yeah. Because see, every day I see what it looks like when they don't do discipline. So yes. As much as
now,
I love her, yes. I have
now,
no problem.
yeah. Now I'm
Yeah.
for it. Trust
Yeah.
me. You need to discipline, but you
Because
gonna.
I believe in wherever you cut up at is where you go get this. Now, not to the point where, I'm gonna lose my accreditation or anything like that. But
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
she's gonna be raised. Well, she'll know what the look is.
That part.
The
That
look.
part. That
And
part.
and and I do like my grandmother used to do me. I have the conversation before we go into the store. Now look, this is
Yep.
what I expect.
Yep.
Don't embarrass me in the store
Yep.
because when we get out in this car. So yeah.
And
But
it's
it really is. I just I see so much honestly
yeah.
that some correction could have taken care of
That
that I
and
just
that's when I say there's no bad kids. I think that's what I'm thinking of is that there's correction that needs to be had.
it is, and the longer it goes without any, yeah,
Mhm.
they become, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the behavior, I mean, think about it. When there's no consequences, then you just continue to not only do what you've been doing, but you continue to up the ante. So that means that it's like it went from to okay. Now it's
Yep.
just like
Yep. You're
we're
gonna
just
see how
here.
far you go. See how far
And it's going to continue to get worse. And I'm just like, when you are reaching out to the parents and they're in denial about a teacher's role, I'm like, but ma'am, this is your child. So, if they're disrespecting you at home, what do you expect us to do? Because, but that's
Yeah,
a whole nother story.
that
That
is.
is
But that you bring up a good point. That's a good point.
so I think that, and it's not about, getting a switch from the backyard and, beating your kids like what's happening to probably us in the 70s, but
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's about, being able to sit a child down and say, this is what we expect out of you. This is how you're supposed to act. This is how you act in the store. This is how, I'm going to get you something. This is what, so kids are very smart. So a lot of
Very.
times it takes a conversation where you
Mm-hmm.
just sit down to that child and just kind of explain it to them. And normally that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my pet peeves, as far as speaking of being in stores with people, is when you see people cussing their kids out. That just, when I tell you, it makes the hairs on my neck stand up. I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's not even necessary. But a lot of times, and I talked about this in the book,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know. There's no. I mean, there are parenting classes, but if this is how you were raised, you think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine having a special needs child and you talking to them like that, and you lowering their self every time you saying something to them like that, it's etching away from the little self-esteem they might have had.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so those are the things that I like to work on. I tell people all the time, I'm not that frou-frou teacher where, the classroom looks immaculate. No, but I am that teacher that I believe in making those lifelong connections. That
Yeah.
every time in the future, 10 years from now, when they think about Miss Hatcher, they're going to remember something that I said,
Yeah.
or one of my things that made them laugh, or maybe when I made them mad, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very rewarding to have students that I had the previous year uh, come back to me when the next school year starts and say, and they're real because kids are honest.
They're
They're real.
very.
Yeah, I did your guts last year. Yeah, I know. But you know what? I realized over the summer that, you were pretty cool, and, we did this in your room, and that you really cared about us. I said, yeah, I did. I said, and that's why you hated my guts, because I didn't let you get away with stuff that wasn't going to serve you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honest with kids. Look, this is what I expect, and I'm not playing with you. You
Yeah.
know, I want you to be the best person you're going to be. You can't be your best self doing this stuff. You can't be your best self and you're not even trying in class.
Mm-hmm.
You're more concerned with doing other stuff, being a distraction. No, they don't want to hear it, but it's something about the summer where they're just, I guess, in their own little world, and they don't have you, going, you're talking to them crazy every day in their mind.
Yeah.
Um, that they're able to say, she was right. And I
Yeah.
think she really did care about us,
Yeah. I think
and
it has something to do with being able to actually apply what they've been taught.
right.
Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And to see that, at the end of the day, it's all about connections, that I still cared, even
Mhm.
when it was a bad day, to come back the next day and say, yeah, and even if they didn't see that they should apologize, to be able to have that conversation in private outside of everyone else and say, hey, what you did was not right. And I think you owe me an apology. What do
Mhm.
you think?
Mhm.
And sometimes you see the wheels kind of turning like, well, no. And then sometimes they'll say, well, I'm sorry. And I said, well, I think that you do. But what I want you to do is think about, do you really think I deserve one? And if you do think I deserve one, to come back to me when it's sincere, because there's nothing worse than a fake apology, because you don't mean it.
Right. Absolutely.
So when
Absolutely.
you realize that there was something, I said, because and I always tell my students that teachers are human as well. So
Yeah.
we have bad days, we have good days, and that we're not always right. And if I did something wrong or I realized that I shouldn't have approached it that way, just like I did it publicly, I will come back the next day and say, class, yesterday I did this. And I realized that that wasn't how I should have handled that. And I apologize. And you should see the kids, they're just like, did she just apologize? Yeah, teachers can apologize too, because again, we're not perfect, you
Yeah.
know.
I
We are
think that
humans just like you all are,
I think that the children that are seeing that, one, they've never had an adult apologize to them
Right.
because adults, you know, think that we're, some households it's like I'm right, and I don't have to apologize. I think that there's some old school teaching.
Mhm.
But what you did with that, which I love, is you showed them that you can be accountable for your actions.
Right.
So I'm holding you to the same standard that I
Right.
hold myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that in and of itself is a teaching lesson.
It is, because accountability is, yeah, it's something that I start from day one. And and kids are very sensitive. Why they always want to deflect and go to something else. Baby, at the end of the day, this is something you did. It has nothing to do with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, it's all about being accountable. I said, that A word is more powerful than anything else because it stops with you. It's not about what someone else is doing. I said, and I said, everyone has trouble with that at some point, struggling to be held accountable when someone else is like, well, what about when you did this? And
Hmm.
even as parents, my kids have come to me and say, well, uh, childhood wasn't, as great as you thought it was. Okay.
Yeah.
And it used to bother me, but I was like, wait a minute. I did the best that I could.
That
I
you took the
showed up
words right
every
out my
day,
mouth.
you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
as they say in track and field, I left it on the track.
Hmm.
I left it all on the track. So no, it's not like whatever you thought it should have been. And I'm sorry that it wasn't as great for you as I tried for it to be. But that's life. It really
Yeah.
is. But at the end of the day, that same mama is the one that loves you and still showing up for you now when she can, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because as we talked about in our pre-podcast, uh, parenting doesn't stop when the child becomes 18. See, they didn't
No.
tell me that before I had kids. I thought that they
Nobody
had to hold to this for
told me
18.
that.
Nobody, they don't tell you that. So, you're locked into these kids. It's like a marriage, to death do you part. They call you, and if you want to, I mean, you have a choice to say, well, no. But a lot of times, if it's legitimate and you have it, and they're trying, and that something is going on, you're gonna try to do it. Or even if they're just great kids, and like, I saw this and I
Absolutely.
wanted to get this for you, because I love you and I can right now. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes
Yeah.
I can't, but when
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
you know, I'm that mom. So the thing is, but no, they never tell you that. You think that, oh, and let's get 18 and
You don't
so
know how
life
many
really
times
does.
I have talked to my mom in the spirit realm and say, "You didn't tell me this part. You didn't
Mm,
tell me this part." Now I understand why you worried about me more when I was an adult child, seemed like, then,
mm,
because you didn't tell me how much you worry about. I think that the biggest part of it is you for me, I'm gonna say for me, is that now they're free to make their own decisions and
yeah,
you have no control over the decision that you make. So you have to have faith in God and faith in what you instilled in them to say, I taught you this, I gave you the tools. Now it's up to you to use the tools that I instilled in you or do
mhm.
something different.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
And
boy, that's
I
never said.
it sounds easy, but it's not. You know.
Absolutely not. And I say that I preach that every single day that that's
Mhm,
not easy.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
have so enjoyed. We listen. I didn't even get. I knew I wasn't. I didn't even get to half of the questions,
I know, I know.
but I think we
But
had a
it was fun. It was
good.
fun. It was enlightening. I hope that, it's something that, because there's a lot of opportunities for, like you said, for parents that really need the help to get it. I do life coaching for parents, special needs parents,
Okay.
and along with some other services, which I'm sure you'll tag it in the website,
I will. I'm gonna
and all of
tag.
that good
So
stuff. But
I'm gonna tag
it's
all
yeah,
that. Yeah, I'm gonna tag all that. I definitely keep us posted. Share with me about the book so I can definitely help push that out. I have so enjoyed having a conversation with you, getting to know you. We will keep in touch. We will
absolutely,
definitely keep in touch.
absolutely, absolutely. Because
And
I'm excited to hear about all your endeavors as well. So
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. And if and when, however it looks like when I bring the podcast back, I do want us to do that show that we've talked about in regards to
absolutely. It will be waiting for you. I look forward to it. We can add a few other people, add some other people to it as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so
It's,
needed.
it's so neat.
We're very diverse, so we do all kinds of stuff. So
Absolutely. Thank you
Aisha,
so
it
much.
has been so great. Thank you so much for
Mm.
allowing me to join the podcast and just talk about parenting, special needs parenting, teaching special needs kids, and being an advocate and all of that. Because yeah, I've been on a few, and it's just this one has just really it's done something for my spirit. It's made me happy, and also it's just been fun, and I
Mm.
love to just be able to have fun doing stuff.
Good. I'm so glad that you
Yeah.
enjoy it. I like I told you before, we just gonna have a conversation.
And we did. And we did. We had all kinds of conversation. You
We
just
did.
took me full circle, from
Absolutely.
here to back and being a veteran, and just, we just went
But
all
it
over the
all
place.
ties in together, I think.
It does. It does
Yeah.
tie in together. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Well,
Well,
thank
good
you
luck
so
to
much for everything.
absolutely good luck to you moving forward. We will be in touch. I'm gonna make sure to send you my information. And like I
Okay.
said, as soon as the book is released, we're gonna help push that out for you as
Yeah, I
well.
appreciate that.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Take care.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
All right, bye-bye.
So thank you all for joining us. Wow, what a awesome way what an awesome way to close out. If I do this right podcast, as I've already stated before, that this will be the last show at least for a while. Not going to count it all off, but this will be the last show at least to the end of the year, and then I'll see how I want to bring it back and represent it in the future. But you can always check me out, connect with us if I do this right podcast at gmail.com. We are Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We still have all the old shows on YouTube. There's some great interviews that have been done. So I wish you guys nothing but the best and keep in touch.